Hi everybody, I'm Terry, and today we're going to bleed the brakes on the BMW Z3. Welcome back everybody. We just got done with 2 videos that covered how to replace the front and rear brakes on the Z3. Now it's time to go ahead and flush out all that old fluid. So we're going to go ahead and do the brake bleed. Now sometimes this doesn't always work. The bleed screws can have a tendency, depending on where you live and how long they've last been maintained, they might seize up and you might not be able to break them loose to bleed the brakes. So if that happens, then you'll have to either take it into a shop to get the bleed screws replaced or replace the entire caliper, which can be kind of pricey. So hopefully you don't run into those kind of situations. Hopefully I don't run into that situation. But we're going to go ahead and get these bled. It's a pretty straightforward way to do it. You can go with a one-man like pressure bleeder. That's the easiest way to go about doing this. I do not own one of those. So we're going to be doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to have my husband pump the pedal, and I'm going to bleed the brakes. So let's go ahead and get into that. Alright, so you don't need very many tools. You're going to need to get yourself a wrench. Now this is the one that's going to be quite helpful. This one's a 2-in-1. It's got the 7mm on one end and 9mm on the other, because the rear brakes are 7 and the front brakes are 9. At least on my Z3, I think you might have a 6mm possibly on the older Z3s, but don't quote me on that. And you're going to want to use like a flare wrench. This way it grips a little bit better and you're less likely to like round off anything. A regular wrench only grips on like 2 edges, and so it's easy to round off your bleeder screws. So get wrenches this one here is specifically made for brakes. So either get something like this, or just get like a flare nut wrench, and you'll be set on that. And then get yourself a bottle and a little hose that can fit on the male end for your bleed screws to get the old fluid out. You can either buy one like I got, or you can just use like an old like soda bottle or whatever. And a little fluid extractor comes in handy to pull the old fluid out of the reservoir. And then of course get some new stuff. And the Z3 uses .4, so we got some of that. Alright, so this here is the master cylinder. That's going to be on the left hand side. You're going to need to open this up. Now on the Z3 there is a screen in here. I had removed this on my previous video because my thing was overflowing, so I had to extract some fluid. So I just had to use like a needle nose pliers, and I was able to pull it out. Now I didn't push it all the way back in, so I should be able to just yank it up by hand. There it is. So you're going to need to remove the screen if you need to extract any fluid out of here. Now I already pulled some fluid out. There's still some more in there. You don't want to fully remove all the fluid, otherwise you're going to be introducing air into the brake system. But to put new fluid in, try to get out a good amount so that way you can put some new fresh stuff in there. So I'm going to try to get a little bit more of this old stuff out and then put some new fluid in. Alright, let's just get some of this old fluid out of here. I've already extracted quite a bit of this from earlier, so I don't need to take too much more out. Alright, that's all I'm going to take because I don't want to introduce any air to the system. So there's still going to be some dirty stuff at the bottom. Now if you drip anywhere, make sure you wipe it away right away. If it makes contact with metal, it'll corrode very quickly. Alright, now that I'm done extracting, I can put my screen back in. And we'll go ahead and put the new fluid in. And then hopefully I don't spill everywhere. that should be good. And then we'll just continuously add more as we bleed. All right, now the orientation or the order that you're going to be bleeding the brakes may change depending on the vehicle you do this on. So you basically want to start from the furthest away from the master cylinder. However, you know, depending on how your stuff is set up, your master cylinder might be on one side and then the rest of your brake system might be on the outside. So it might vary, but everything I need is all on the same side, which is the left-hand side. So what we're going to do is start from the rear right-hand side, which would be the furthest away, then do the rear left, then the front right, and then the front left side last. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I got my bottle set up. Then you move over here, you open up where the bleeder is going to be. I'm going to put my wrench on there, and this is going to be the 7. Get that on, and then put the hose on there. And then if you're doing it the traditional way like I am, have your companion, whoever you got to push the pedal, have them push it 3 times and hold. And then while they're holding it, you'll break the valve open. And then that fluid comes out, and then we'll close it. Pump 3 times and hold. Open it again. Again. And we'll do this until the fluid runs clear. You holding? Again. Again. And you're looking for air bubbles as well. I don't have any air bubbles, which is good. I just don't have clean fluid yet. Again. This could take a while for the first one because we didn't get all the dirty fluid out of the reservoir for the master cylinder. So we got to get all that fluid to come through. Again. Again. All right, so we still got all this dirty fluid. Looks like it's starting to become more transparent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check on the master cylinder and make sure we got plenty of fluid in there, and we're going to keep going. All right, so I went ahead and I topped off the master cylinder. I didn't lose too much, so which is good, but make sure you keep an eye on that. All right, you holding? So we're still looking really good. We got no air bubbles in the hose. The fluid still has a little bit of discoloration to it, but otherwise it's looking pretty good. So it would be up to you if you wanted to stop here or keep going. You want it as clear as possible. There could be a slight tint in here from the dirty fluid going through. So I think this one should be fine. Just try to get the dirty fluid then to flow so I'm not spilling it everywhere. All right, and then go ahead and just wipe off the end of the bleeder screw so that way if any fluid dripped on there, it's not going to corrode it. And then put your protective cover, like your little cap, back on there. And then this one is good. Now we're going to repeat these steps on the rest of them. So let's go to the other rear side and do that one next. All right, so we're over on the other side. Open up that cap. All right, we'll get our wrench on there. And then put the hose. All right, pump it and hold. Now when I did this side, I think there might be a slight clog in the brake line. You'll notice that it takes several attempts for me to get the fluid through the hose. Whereas on the other sides, I can fill the hose with the first opening of the bleed valve. This one took 3 or 4 attempts to get it through the hose. So something to keep an eye on for the next brake change. Alright, so we finally got to where all the air is out of the hose. We had to wait for it to fill up here. So it helps to have some old fluid in here to help prevent air from just constantly going back into the hose. So now, looking for any kind of air bubbles, we want to keep going. I'm going to just double check the master cylinder and do our top off. Don't ever want to let that run dry. Okay, so I went ahead and I re-topped it off. It wasn't too low, but I just want to keep a close eye on it. So ideally you want to do the pump method at least 5 times per side. I'm going a little extra because I want to make sure I'm getting as much of that dirty fluid out as possible. So let's go ahead and pump it. Again. Again. All right, I think that's good enough for this side. We're going to unhook that. I don't see any air bubbles. And put the cap back on. Now we're going to go over to the front right side. All right, so now we're over on the front right hand side. We're going to open this up. Now the front is going to be your 9mm instead of your 7 like you had in the rear. You tend to have larger brakes in the front. And then get our hose on here. All right, pump it. Again. 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 All right, so we've done this about 5 times. I still don't see any air bubbles in the hose. Again, the fluid isn't perfectly clear like I would like it to, but I don't want to, but I mean, as long as we're getting a lot of that old stuff out and we've got new fluid going in, I'm still going to be content with that. If you want to be a little bit more thorough, you can do it more. So we're going to call this side, you know what, I'll do one more for good measure. One more. All right, now we'll just disconnect the hose, take the wrench off, give it a little wipe down, and cover that up. And now we just got to do the left front and then we'll be done. And this is how much of the dirty fluid we've gotten out so far. Some of that was from the extraction, but at least we're getting a lot of that nasty stuff out of the system. All right, so we're on the final side. I went ahead and I topped off the master cylinder one more time. Open this up. All right, the first few times is just trying to get the air out of the hose. I'm gonna kind of move my bottle over here a little bit because my hose isn't staying submerged. All right, as long as this is lower than the bleed thing is the most important part. All right, pump it. Ooh, a lot of air in that one. Pump it. I want you guys to see that. You can actually see there's some air bubbles in the hose right there. That's the stuff you want to make sure you get out. Pump. 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 All right, one more time I think would be 5. I kind of wasn't counting. I think we're around 5. I don't see any more bubbles coming out, and it's looking pretty close to clear. We'll do one more just in case. All right, and then that's done. Go ahead and pump it again because it's going to be soft. Once it feels stiff, you're good. All right, and then we give it a little wipe down and recover that. And then we'll just re-top off the master cylinder, and that's all there is for bleeding your brakes. Very simple. And look at all that nasty fluid we got out of there. We'll go ahead and top it off one more time to where it says max. So we're just a little below that right now. We don't need to put too much in there. Have to kind of wiggle it to find out where it is because it's hard to see the fluid line because it's so clear. All right, I think we're right at it. All right, all done. And that's all there is to it for bleeding the brakes. It's pretty straightforward. Now, once again, if you have a pressure bleeder, you can do it all by yourself. But this method, I think, is kind of better because there is always a chance that the pressure bleeder could lose PSI. It could blow off the master cylinder and create a mess. So it's just, for me, I prefer doing it this way because there's less mess. It's a little more tedious having to have a second person, but at least I know it's not going to blow off the master cylinder and spray fluid all over the engine bay. So that's why I prefer doing it this way. It's also important, you want to try to replace the fluid for your brakes, I believe, every 2 years. I think is what's recommended, every 2 years. Don't quote me on it. I think it's every 2 years. And the reason being is it's hygroscopic. It's going to be constantly absorbing moisture from the air, and that's going to change the boiling point on the brake fluid, which means it's built to be able to handle the high temperature of the brakes. Once you start getting water in there, then the boiling point will change, and it's going to make it to where the brake fluid's going to boil quicker, and that's going to affect the performance of the brakes, and that's not going to be good. So that's why you want to make sure you change it out, all right? And they have special tests, strips you can put in the fluid to test how much the boiling point has changed on it based on how much moisture is in it. So you can do that. I've had this car for 4 years and I've never changed it, so I just want to make sure I had gone through and done it myself to make sure it's good to go again. So now it's all set and we're ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button, give me a like, and I hope to see you on the next project for the BMW Z3. Take care.